Yeah, good shit. Really was. I get some. Nice. Oh, it's fun. They go. If they do, that's great. Yes, yes, good. Did that decision.
That's my guess.
Aaron.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Don Harris. I'm sitting in as the interim pro tem. Yes. Our vice chair, Aaron, is online with us. Please rise.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Terrific show. We do have a forum. We're going down to public participation. Board member Christian's record will call the names of those who have signed up.
Thank you to those who have signed up for public participation. As a reminder, each public participation speaker is permitted 3 minutes to speak. I will call in groups of 2. The first 2 speakers are Dr. Jeff Vance and Dr. Laura Morello.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Vance, and I am the interim director of the School of Education at the University of Bridgeport. I am honored to be with all of you today to not only introduce the school, but also to very quickly explain who we are and what we do and how we care about the students in our work that matters so much for all of us. The University of Bridgeport has a long-standing service to education, mission, and development. We offer programs leading to master's, 6th year, and doctoral programs in elementary education, secondary education, education administration, and media reading. This academic year, we enrolled 185 new students across our programs, and we're proud that approximately 2/3 of those students will go ahead and enroll with us. That reflects not just our interest, but the trust in what we offer. But the measure of the School of Education certainly is not enrollment alone. It's the educators and leaders we send out into the world. I would like to highlight very quickly 3 alumni whose work reflects the impact of the University of Bridgeport. But first of all, Congressman John Hayes, UB alumni who went from educator to elected official, embodying the servant leadership we work to develop every day. Second, Brian Patesh, Connecticut's 2026 Teacher of the Year, and the National Teacher of the Year finalist, earned his master's here at UB, and then returned to teach at the very school he attended, Rogers Park Middle School in Denver. Third is Dr. Damon Lewis, the National Middle School Principal of the Year, who reduced chronic absenteeism and expanded minority student access to gifted programs. These 3 alumni stand together as a composite representation of the University of Bridgeport. I am happy to serve as interim director. I am a graduate of UB myself, and wanted to just introduce myself. My colleague, Dr. Goldman, will also say a few words, but I'm very happy to be here today for the Bologers.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Laura Morello. I serve as an assistant professor in our School of Education, as well as one of the program directors in our teacher preparation program, and serve as the CAPE coordinator for initial teacher preparation program, as well as being a CAPE site evaluator. I'm a former elementary and secondary teacher prior to embarking into higher education. So we know that the University of Bridgeport is here to address our CAPE review, and we understand that we received several areas for improvement. In the folders that were given to you, there's a brief narrative that addresses the work that we've already started towards these. We've done significant substantive work. We're currently in a transition process with our clinical practice program, looking at assessments, ensuring that we're aligning them to be reliable and valid assessments. That way we are preparing teachers for how they need to be prepared. We're actively building the data infrastructure needed to systematically collect and analyze candidate performance evidence, completer outcomes, and employer feedback. We are also in the early stages of launching the Connecticut Educator Preparation Consortium, a new acronym for everyone, which is a proposed statewide collaborative work with other EEPs around the state of Connecticut, with the intention of strengthening educator preparation across institutions throughout the state. Again, that is in your packet as well. This is to show that this compliance work is a genuine commitment to the quality of teacher preparation of our candidates and Connecticut's students. We recognize that our AFIs need prompt questions today, and we welcome them.
Thank you. The next two speakers are Dr. Carrie Jones and Elizabeth Sked.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Carrie Jones. I'm Assistant Professor of Educational Leadership at the University of Bridgeport, and I serve as the CAPE Coordinator for Advanced Preparation Programs. I joined UB in 2024 after 31 years as a public school teacher and leader in Connecticut, proud public school teacher and leader in Connecticut. I also want to thank you all for your work on behalf of the children, families, and educators in our state. Thank you for your attention. I'm pleased to be here with Dr. Vance and Morello to share how we are strengthening our alignment across our initial and advanced programs. I will briefly address 3 areas of our program review, again, noted in your past. First, candidate recruitment. Our self-study did lack longitudinal goals and outcomes aligned with CAPE expectations. This fall, we partnered with our admissions team to standardize how application data are collected and analyzed on consistent academic year schedules. Annual admission summaries now capture candidate demographics and trends. And with consistent baseline data in place, we've established measurable multi-year goals. We strive to increase enrollment of teacher and leader candidates who identify as Black and Hispanic, currently about 1/3 of our enrolled students. We also seek to sustain strong admission yield rates across our programs, currently ranging from 67 to 90%. The second point from our AFI list are quality assurance systems. We are building a sustainable faculty-driven system that connects key data sources, follows a clear annual review calendar, and includes protocols to ensure calibration and reliability across the system. We are disaggregating performance data by demographic categories to support valid, equity-focused decision-making. This work moves us from compliance toward continuous. And finally, completer impact. We recognize the need both at our university and those across Connecticut for stronger access to pre-K-12 student learning data that demonstrates the impact of our university trained educators. We are collaborating with higher education partners to identify effective models for collecting that data. And beginning this summer, as Dr. Morello mentioned, we will launch a consortium to gather and share impact data more systemically across our state. Our work is underway, led by faculty and staff committed to preparing educators to meet the needs of children. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Sked, and I'm Connecticut Education Association's Education Issues Specialist. Prior to joining staff in 2022, I was an educator in New London for 28 years. In my role, one of my duties is supporting both field staff and members with certification issues and questions. I'm speaking in support of the continuation of emergency educator certification endorsements for the 26-27 school year. These endorsements are an important tool that allows districts to fill critical teaching positions while maintaining high standards for student learning. The emergency endorsements play a significant role in addressing staffing shortages that many districts continue to face. They allow students to have access to certified teachers, preventing gaps in instruction. At the same time, we do recognize that this is a temporary solution, a Band-Aid rather than a long-term fix. It highlights the urgent need for broader systemic solutions to ensure that all schools have sufficient number of fully certified teachers in every subject area. CEA appreciates that the process requires the agreement of the local association, applicant, and the district, ensuring that educators and their representatives have a voice in how these endorsements are applied in their schools. We also value that only educators who already hold provisional or professional certificates are eligible to apply. This approach protects our newest teachers, those just beginning their own teaching in their content area, from being pressured or encouraged to take on additional responsibilities before they have fully established themselves. By enabling districts to fill vacancies responsibly, we're helping to ensure that every student has access to a skilled teacher rather than being left in a classroom without the guidance and expertise they need to succeed. In short, continuing these endorsements for the 26-27 school year strikes a careful balance. It supports districts in meeting immediate staffing need, respects the experience and readiness of our educators, and ultimately benefits the students across the state. CEA urges the approval of these emergency generalist endorsements. While we're thinking about growing our profession, I would be remiss not to take a brief moment to highlight the incredible work being done by CEA's aspiring educators and Connecticut's Educator Rising students. I'm fortunate to work closely with both as the organizer for the Aspiring Educators Program and as the chair of the newly established Advisory Council for Educators Rising as they become a CTSO. I also collaborate weekly with Jason Foster, the regional coordinator of Ed Rising. The passion, leadership, and commitment to the profession of all involved is inspiring. Educators Rising students and staff are currently hard at work planning and preparing for their state competition and conference in March. Both Educators Rising and our aspiring educators are also eagerly anticipating their national conferences in June, where they will showcase their talents, deepen their learning, and connect with future educators from across the country. The energy, dedication, and promise within these programs gives me tremendous hope for the next generation of educators. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Dr. Anne Marie Mulready.
Good morning, members of the Connecticut State Board of Education and Commissioner Russell Tucker. I'm Dr. Anne Marie Mulready, and I'm usually here representing the Connecticut Association of Reading Research regarding illiteracy issues. Today, however, I'm here as a concerned citizen in the opinions I express on my own. House Bill 5217, aimed at changing the role of the Connecticut State Board of Education to an advisory body only, clearly weakens at the state level the ability of the average stakeholder citizen to impact education policy, to seek redress, or to report the outcomes of adopted policy and law. One need only be present at the public comment segment of a State Board of Education meeting to observe and understand the immediacy of citizens' needs and ideas that are presented directly to you. Compare that to the process of trying to make a direct connection to an online portal with one's elected General Assembly member, who may or may not be familiar with the educational issue at hand. This bill will damage the ability of an individual and a small organization such as my own to influence educational decisions. A second consequence of this government structure is that with every statewide election, there will be presented the opportunity of creating or eliminating curricula based on political or personal agendas or current media popularity. Further, the commissioner will lose a resource for defending good policy to the public when such policy is called into question due simply to adversarial agendas. Even though the department has lately been required to implement some policies emanating from the General Assembly, at least the planning and implementation remains with career DOE professionals in the board. All of you who in some manner are connected to an important aspect of learning, whether it be the impact of nutrition on learning ability, understanding the most current developments necessary to career preparation, or as experienced teachers and administrators. The commissioner will be required to consider political outcomes when making decisions about teaching and learning and students' well-being. Unfortunately, I was unable to participate in the public hearing on 227, but I did listen to the entire meeting. I was dismayed that only 2 people expressed concerns about this change. I am writing to my representatives, one of whom luckily is on the Education Committee, and will be encouraging others to do the same. I hope that in some way the board will be able to convince members of the General Assembly that this bill is not in the best interest of Connecticut's students.
Thank you. That concludes public participation.
Thank you. Item 3 on our agenda is executive session. Kristen, would you,
I hereby move that the board go into executive session for the purposes of reviewing and discussing a written legal opinion from our legal director, and further move that our legal director and our chief of staff legislative liaison be invited into executive session.
Second.
second, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are moving to room J. Hey,
Pull back. Yes. Jim, food disorders. In case I didn't know. They'll be walking center advocate. And like, what you need to use headache. Yes. It's a education. Like this meeting. Either way, yeah. It's like we're curious as to what the. Yeah, I would have to take. I know. Serious.
Every this. I was talking to you actually. Yeah. Every other class together.
Oh, yes.
Telling me his sort of his leader.
Oh,
Yeah.
You'll always be detention. I keep.
Didn't say that.
Oh, we have a long history.
You guys this whole video about like the background.
yeah, I know.
The lines is right in there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's not your man.
I'll just check it for sound.
Oh, I was with you, remember?
I don't know. Yeah. Great point. No.
I put out a search with yourself.
Search.
I promise.
Aldith?
Yeah, exactly. That was pretty high. Yeah.
They're looking for the commissioner.
Okay, you can hear me though. I'm saying, it's saying I'm muted, but
Yes,
you
we
can
can
hear me.
hear
You are not muted. We can hear you very well. It works now. I'm back in business.
We were in an airport.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We are back in session. And thank you for your patience. And we're moving ahead to consideration of minutes of our last meeting, February 11th. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any corrections, additions, deletions? Concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It is item number 5, the report of our chair, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, and good morning, everyone. Very short notice and report this month. I want to point out that our 2 student members and Dr. Carlson went through executive nomination committee last month. Superb job by all 3. It always amazes me when our students go up there and their backgrounds are just outstanding. If you haven't had a chance to view it, I would highly recommend that you do so. I agreed with you, Dr. Carlson, that they were a hard act to follow, but you did excellent as well. So I look forward to Dr. Pitkoff being up next. I'm guessing sometime later this month or in April. And that really concludes my report. Excellent job for all of them. Committee reports. Mrs. Garbelto, academic and standards.
Everyone, the Academic Standards Committee meeting was scheduled for March 10th. We have canceled that meeting. Canceled it because there is literally nothing that is time sensitive, urgent, either in terms of an action item or in terms of an information item, and that this was also done in consultation with the staff. I would encourage members, as I did at last board meeting, that if you have any area of interest with respect to academic standards and assessment, please let me know, any of the committee members know, or the staff know, so that we can proceed in terms of thoughtful agendas that help inform the full board. Thank you.
Accountability and Support does not have a meeting this month, but does have a meeting on April 28th. Mr. Harris, Finance Audit.
Good morning. Again, Finance and Audit. We were scheduled to meet on February 24th. And will everybody remember we were inundated with snow?
Right.
And everybody was still digging out. So our meeting was postponed. And we are meeting next Wednesday, March 11th at 10 a.m.
Ms. Burr, Legislation and Policy.
Good morning. Our last meeting was on February 11, and we continue reviewing the CEP-CEB's proposed revisions, and we'll continue to do so at our meeting today. We will have a meeting at 1 o'clock or is immediately following the adjournment of the State Board of Education. We will be in room J for our meeting at 1 o'clock or whenever we finish.
And our CTEC system, Dr. Pritchard.
Good morning, everyone. I just thought I'd give you a quick update on how our lottery has gone for our incoming ninth graders for the 26-27 school year. So as of March 3rd, we have nearly 9,000 applications for CTEC schools, which is astounding for about 3,500 slots. So we have extended offers to just over 3,300 students and have a 94% acceptance rate, which tells you that students really want in. Everyone who did not get selected is put on a wait list. Those wait lists vary greatly from a couple of dozen students at some schools to several hundred students at others. I will tell you that Bullard Havens was our largest application pool this year. We had over 1,000 applications for 230 slots. So if you're on that wait list, your chances are very slim. Whereas at the other end of the scale, a school like Wyndham or Vinyl had, a couple dozen and students may find their way onto the wait list. So that's less than 40% of our applicant pool getting into CTEX, and we're finalizing that process now as we go. So as you can imagine, I'm getting a lot of questions from legislators and from the governor's office about what to do about that level of demand. We really are at capacity. We had 11,700 students this year, probably a few more than we could probably feasibly fit. And so we're starting to look at some other opportunities to work with comprehensive high school in after-school programming, and looking at things like our Bristol model, which allows 11th and 12th graders to come to our school during the day for their training opportunities. So looking at some other things. One such opportunity is in the governor's proposed budget, which would provide us with some resources to provide additional adult training opportunities, particularly evening programming. That currently is not funded by the general fund. Individuals who want to come to our programs at night or after hours are paying their own way. And so the governor has put in some resources to start to expand those opportunities. So we're hopeful that that will make it through the legislative process, and that we'll be able to start experimenting with some expansion opportunities. The other thing that the governor put in the budget that I just wanted to mention is resources for us to start to hire our own paraeducator workforce. Currently, all of our paraeducators are hired under a third-party contract by CREC in partnership with some of their other RESC partners. And so this would give us a little bit of money to start bringing them onto our own professional services budget. We'll see how that makes it through the legislative session. I've been asked, if that's economical, and I have suggested that that's not the question we should be asking, but whether this provides a greater opportunity to integrate and services for our students. So there's a little bit of money. It's not a lot to start with, to start to bring on that workforce. It will require us to create a state classification, because that doesn't exist right now, and to do our own hiring. So it would be a multi-year process if we were able to bring the entire paraeducator workforce onto our personnel budget. I am hopeful that this would create that pipeline that the commissioner and the commissioner of labor have also worked on, to think about the apprenticeship programs, that if we can bring paras in, that we can also build them into our teaching workforce. So those are some of the things on the CTEX. I'm happy to answer questions if there are.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard.
Yeah.
We do not have a report this month from the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities, so I'll move on to NASB. We've had 2 meetings since our last board meeting. We had one with on HQIM with Ms. Record and Ms. Gabelta, which was a very interesting meeting that will continue, that Connecticut will continue to look into that and participate in our highly qualified instruction material that we have here in Connecticut. This past Monday, we also had our monthly member exchange. Thank you again to Dr. Pitcock, Dr. Labus, and Ms. Record for attending. A lot of discussions, of course, over funding when we had our federal update. Many questions there. A lot of questions over AI. In fact, most of the breakout sessions across the country were on AI, and so we'll continue to monitor that, what's going on with other states with AI. And I would say the other highly one is curriculum that was discussed. So that ends and NASB will have their next member exchange in April. And to finish with CERC, there is no report. There wasn't really much of a change from our last month's meeting, so we opted to move, and we'll have a new update at our April meeting. That concludes my report and the committee reports, and I'll pass it over to you, Commissioner. Good morning.
Well, thank you. But before we do that, with the board members, with your permission and to help increase the flow of our agenda, I would like to move item number 10, the consent agenda, to be presented after commissioners.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
So, Commissioner.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Bennett, in your site. Mr. Harris, and all the board members, good morning to all of you. The commissioner's report is in your supplemental packet as usual. Relevant board strategic priority areas is identified. And you have the state board by their comprehensive plan priorities aligned are there for you. You also have, that will be a regular feature that you'll always have as a reminder of the work that we're doing together, which is really important, as is the focus. The 4 strategic areas are in slide 2, right, again, that you can see now. Last month, you received a comprehensive presentation on career pathways, and my neighbor here to the left, Ms. Burr, made a strong interest and request that we continue to share that information with you. And so later this morning, you will be hearing directly from some school leaders talking about what it looks like on the ground. So moving that forward. On slide 3, you do have, again, my commitment to data transparency. We do have the strategic focus areas that we're working on that are aligned to the state board plan. And so again, the feature to share that with you. And now I've added in our enrollment data. It is a reminder constantly of the landscape the landscape of our demographics of our student population in Connecticut. And I always say that we have, in this case, 497,764 very good reasons for the work that we're doing every day, focused attention, supporting our educators and the entire system. And so that information is there for you as well. We take a look at the agency initiatives for the month. First, I wanted to share with you that the department is partnered with CERC and the REST Alliance to provide updated state guidance for multi-tiered systems of support. You hear us in the education work talk about MTFS. And what is that really? A multi-tiered system of support is a framework or models that includes tiers of instruction and other kinds of support so that all our students can make progress by getting the kind of education that meets their needs. Essentially, it offers students who are learning, who are challenged, social, emotional, behavioral difficulties, personalized instruction or support that matches the level of help that they need to stay on pace with their peers. So you have different tiers of support. And so that is the work we're working on. We've done this guidance now for many, many years, and it is time for it to be refreshed and updated. And so we're working with CERC and the REST Alliance with the department that work forward. Next area in my report, I mentioned the fact that we're truly in legislation session season. And I just really want to pause. We're fully engaged in response and participation. And I want to pause and appreciate the staff in the agency, publicly thanking them, because what you don't see behind the scenes is a 24/7 work that they've been doing. I'm literally going to ask them to stand. If you're in this room from the department, you've been engaged in this work, I really am. Don't look at me that way. And I mean that. And I'm doing that purposefully and publicly, because when I say 24/7, it means weekends, but it means Sunday night, it means Saturday all day. And that is the work that they've done. And to date, we've reviewed 40, that's 40, education-related bill proposals, and that we've provided testimony in 34 of them across 8 different committees that includes education. That's labor, that's children's, that's government oversight. All the places that you probably not think have education-related proposals, that they're there. Laura watches for all of them a lot, but I really just wanted to do that. I couldn't be more proud of the commitment of the team, because it's not just about writing proposals. It's about thoughtfully looking at legislation, trying to determine the impacts, not just the impacts on the agency, but what is the impact on school districts and the work that we're trying to get done, and how do we remain focused in getting that work done. And so that is what the team, what we've been doing. And so I just want to appreciate and let you know that is what's happening. So when you get a 14-page or 15-page testimony that I think is now out for today, that is what it takes behind all of that. And it is us sitting back saying, oh, wait a minute, how do we do this? How do we navigate? Do we agree? Do we disagree? All of those kinds of things to make sure that we can be thoughtful in what it is that we're putting there. We don't take it lightly. So I really just want to pause there and show my appreciation for them. So I thank you all very much. On the next slide 5, you'll see that I put some information there. We've been engaged with the U.S. Department of Education, specifically our Assistant Secretary for the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, who is doing something that's different. My experience is doing roundtables, and the roundtables bring education chiefs from across the country together, so we can have really good dialogue and ask questions and get answers and share information. And so at the last roundtable, Assistant Secretary Baszler shared the Secretary priorities for upcoming discretionary grants. They're being very thoughtful, I believe, about how they're going to put their grants out there for the states can apply for. And those are their funded priorities that you see on the screen. And so as you take a look at those funded priorities, you'll see that evidence-based literacy is one of the federal priorities. It's about structured, explicit teaching aligned with research. So literacy is one of the priorities. The other is expanding education choice, which is not education school choice, but it is about making sure every student, regardless of where they are, have choices for participating in education. That's how they present it. Meaningful learning is the next one, about core instruction, especially in mathematics. And finally, career pathways and workforce readiness. I wanted to share that with you because those priorities just sound really familiar to the priorities that we're engaged with here for the board's priorities and for our focus areas. And I share that because I think it positions Connecticut very well when those grant opportunities presents themselves nationwide for application. So I wanted to share that with you as well. And finally, statewide, I was pleased to join the governor, our mayor in Manchester, and superintendent of our Manchester Public Schools, and other local leaders as the governor rolled out or talked about the investments, some of the investments, and specifically for this press conference, it was investment, the $5 million investment to expand Connecticut behavioral health pilot program from 7 to up to about 20 districts. $4.5 million to establish a statewide literacy coaching network. You heard about this in the budget last month when Jessica presented, and $7 million to continue to expand our learner engagement and attendance program. And so it was great to be a part of that and to hear directly the beauty of this first conference was hearing directly from Manchester and them talking about what these programs look like on the ground as they're implemented, and not just what they look like for implementation, but the results that are being seen through the investment. And then the other press conference that we had was with the governor, again, in New Haven, the mayor in New Haven, superintendent, students. 2 students that I'm standing with are going into education, which is great in New Haven. But we were there to talk about the governor's proposal and the bell-to-bell policy, cell phone policy for K-12 students. That is also a governor's proposal. And so to talk about that, I want to just share with you, if you've not read the bill, that under the governor's bill, cell phones and other personal technology devices would be powered off and stored from the beginning to the end of the school day. Districts will work with their local school boards and their families, teachers, students to determine how the policy is implemented in their schools and determine what would happen there. Districts maintain the ability to decide if devices can be used for instructional purposes. Schools will have communication protocols that support communication with families in the event of an emergency. And certainly students who require devices as part of their IEPs, their individual education program or healthcare plan, will continue to have those accommodations protected. So that is the proposal we shared last week, the numbers of school districts that already have those policies in place. It was just good to do that in front of students. I got a question from a journalism student that was there in the lacrosse as well. So thank you, wanted to share that. So transition into hearing from the regular updates. I'm going to switch things around a little bit and start with our guests in this space. I'm going to ask Superintendent Jeffrey Newton, Eastline Public Schools, and our 2026 Superintendent of the Year will be joining us, along with Tom Girard, Superintendent for Waterford Public Schools, and Principal Henry Kidd, Principal of Eastline High School. Have them join us. As I mentioned earlier, last month, you've got a presentation on career pathways and what's happening. In our presentation, you heard directly from students that were embedded in that presentation. And today, you'll hear directly in the voice of school leaders a spotlight on workforce and career readiness as it sits with them at the local district level. So just brief introduction by Dr. Hughes, and then we'll hear from our Senate Principal.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good morning, Board. As the Commissioner alluded to last month, you heard us talk a lot about workforce and the programming. We thought it would be excellent to hear not only from our Superintendent of the Year, but his colleague next door about the work that they are doing in the district relative to workforce. Just a brief background, I saw Jeff and his team present 2 years ago now at the Caves Caps in workforce, and have recently been hearing a lot about the partnership with Tom's district and Waterford, this cooperative in the region of southeastern Connecticut, where they are advancing some career opportunities. So that's all I'll say. I'll let them describe the programming and what they're seeing as opportunities for students in that portion of the state. So, Jeff.
Thank you very much, first of all, for having us. We're excited to join you this morning. We want to hit a couple of high points. One most important fact, it was interesting to hear, with Connecticut technical, education piece, the need for more interest, the greater interest in other spaces. And that's the work we're trying to do in-house in our school systems and collaborating unique opportunities, creating unique opportunities for students. In Eastline, our Pathways program started a few years back. We've noticed, and I think every district has, a number of students that aren't necessarily as interested to go out to college. Those numbers have declined. Eastline and Waterford both have prided themselves on having a high graduation rate and students that go off to a 2 or 4 year college, but those numbers are declining. Much more interested in trades, and that's become a strong part of our focus with our pathway work. In Eastline, over the last few years, we've established over 30 different partnerships, whether they be local partnerships, partnerships with colleges, UConn, for instance, that supports our EMT program, partnerships with automotive shops in town, a hairdresser shop in town, the National Guard. We've had a number of creative partnerships that have come forward that have allowed our students to expand interest and see opportunities outside of college. So with that being said, I was going to turn to Mr. Kidd, who's our high school principal. First, he's going to talk about few of those programs that we really money out of it. Mr. Kidd?
Sure, thank you. And thank you all for having us again. And I just going to highlight some community partnerships that really have expanded real opportunities for our students at Eastline High School. Really, this is a network of relationships. We've learned that expanding opportunity for students doesn't always require new facilities or major capital investments. It requires networking, alignment, and strong community partnerships. Jeff just mentioned one really strong example is our collaboration with Furman's Garage in Niantic. We have students who train inside a working automotive shop in an early morning class. that's co-taught by the shop owner and one of our own teachers. The use of the facility is donated. Community organizations help offset the costs. So our students are really gaining authentic, hands-on experience that directly strengthens their post-secondary plans. We've applied that same model across other areas as well. Partnerships with General Dynamics, Electric Boat, students participate in workforce training programs and regional hiring events. Seniors have been hired before they graduate. So that's really a direct connection between a high school diploma and meaningful employment. In healthcare, our EMT program operates as a regional hub. Students from neighboring districts attend, like Waterford and Old Lyme. Hospitals are providing patient hours, patient contact hours and equipment, and the National Guard has even chipped in and provided advanced training at no cost. So students graduate from our EMT program with dual credit and industry certification eligibility. Newer partnerships, we've begun a partnership with the Patagonia Art Center and have also begun to flesh out a future educator pathway via our work with Ed Rising and other area schools and dual enrollment as well. We also have roughly 70 students who are applying this year for our career concentrations recognitions, which show that our students are actively seeking these sorts of programs that are tied to real outcomes for their next steps in life. So really, these programs and these partnerships have helped us connect with a wide range of learners in new ways. And what we've learned really is that when students can clearly see the connection between the work that they're doing in high school, their diploma now, and a tangible post-secondary plan, engagement rises, families lean in, and students see their future selves in the work that they're attending to in high school.
Excellent. I'll jump in a little bit and try to avoid any redundancy. One area I want to hit on is the support that we get from the State Department of Education in regards to Perkins funding. So we receive a lot of support through the department on our base application for the Perkins base, but as well as the supplemental grant. And those funds are certainly vital to the continued success of our career pathways and clusters. Similar to East Lyme, we've developed viable pathways in manufacturing. You heard East Lyme talk about EV. We're an official EV partnership school at Waterford High School now. EV just bought a mostly vacant mall in town and will be a very large player in town. Their engineers come to our CTE courses, work with our students hand in hand. And as Jeff talked about, the reduction in 2- and 4-year school, but there's also a body of students who do want to go to college but can't afford it, even despite the community college pact and whatnot. The necessary income for them is important. And a lot of these employers are starting to kick in dollars for students. They're hiring out of high school. So it might not be college right now, but it doesn't mean it's not never. Beyond the manufacturing pathway, we're in development with an automotive and logistics pathway, which we'll talk a little bit about in our partnership. And certainly, as you all know, hospitality and culinary has a very large presence in southeastern Connecticut and has allowed us to develop partnerships with big players like Bodie & Son, as well as some other local partners, southeastern Connecticut Manufacturing, Seacon Manufacturing, which is a small mid-sized company. So we're also looking at what's called cross-cutting clusters, meaning career clusters that apply to a variety of fields, so such as marketing and sales. So even if you're chasing a pathway in the automotive and logistics, you're going to have your own business. You have to know something around marketing and sales. So those cross-cutting clusters that cut across business sectors is extremely vital. Going back to the college piece, our partnership with dual enrollment with CT State for a lot of these CTE courses is excellent because students not only are gaining employment after high school, they're also gaining credits if they want to pursue college down the road. But I think one of the things that we're doing in southeastern Connecticut, and I'll let Jeff and Henry expand even more, is for the last 2 school years, Waterford High has been sending students to East Lyme High School first period nearly every day to take some of their CTE classes, specifically in the area of EMT. And East Lyme High School has been sending students to Waterford High School that same period in the morning to take advantage of our automotive and logistics courses. This is a partnership forged over many conversations. It takes two innovative high school principals. Our high school principal, Kirk Samuelson, is back running things in the district and his school this morning, but it's that kind of creative thinking as enrollment across Connecticut has obviously declined and our high schools get smaller. The effort to appeal to our communities still remains high. And I think looking at innovation around how can we do more with the same amount of resources, but I'll kick it over to Jeff and Henry.
Yeah, and that partnership is Superintendent Jerry mentioned is something that really grew out of a lot of back and forth. We have an MOU between the two districts established in our legal counsel as well. So there's red tape with it, but it can be done. And we're looking to expand it and use that first period block to do other classes next year as well. So it's been a great partnership, and we really appreciate being able to do that work.
Just want to say thank you to all three of you for sharing the on-the-ground experience. I hope the board is hearing the degree of partnerships and relationships that are at the core of this work. As the State Department of Ed, we hope to highlight the work that's been done at a local district so that other districts can learn from that practice, how to navigate, how important it is to go to multiple businesses in the region on a day-to-day basis to support students. This is the level of work that it takes to create those new and innovative opportunities for our students. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Questions?
My name is Bonnie Byrne. I have the agri-science seat here at the State Board of Education. And as another program area that is, faces a lot of the same challenges, that there are never, ever, ever enough seats to help young people fulfill their desire to explore careers, to see what kind of, workforce opportunities are out there. I just want to commend your schools for getting creative. That kind of flexibility is something that I hope that we have a lot more districts learning from your experience and moving forward to get that done, because I truly think that's the way we're going to start to allow young people to really find careers that they can be passionate about. So kudos to you for your flexibility and your innovation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to echo that. I was a product way back in the olden days in the 1990s of a cooperative agreement between Cromwell Public Schools and Portland Public Schools that allowed me to travel from Cromwell to Portland to take dual enrollment calculus and physics. So to hear that you folks are doing that now in the CTE space is incredibly exciting to me, and I would absolutely encourage you to share that MOU and your best practices with other particularly small districts that have one high school. That I think that's a wonderful model, and I would love to see that replicated across other district partners. So thank you so much for highlighting that. Kudos.
Thank you.
Other comments?
Sorry. I would love to explore how to build on what you have with the tech high school system, Rosso and others, because there is a lot of discussion right now about how to engage comprehensive high schools, and starting from zero would really not make much sense for any of us. So would really welcome the opportunity to talk and bring our principals into those conversations.
That's me. Thank you.
Just one more note of thanks to the East Line team, in particular, David Pasulo, who is a member of our Credential Advisory Committee that supports the State Department with our work in industry recognized credentials. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that and thank him for his efforts and your support in that.
So you heard a lot of thank yous. But it truly is really so amazing to be able to highlight and spotlight this work. And again, taking it to the board, and we'll be looking for other opportunities to get the work out there, because it's too hidden. Honestly, right? So folks are thinking nothing is happening because somehow we've not really worked hard enough to make sure, strategically enough, to make sure that this information is there. So this is the beginning, and we'll be able to do that. And most school districts is about to do that. But backing up, I talked about all our students, is choice. Is making sure that they see the options that's available to them and bringing it to them and working with your community as well. So thank you for doing that, and we'll continue to find spaces and make spaces for you to be able to share that good work so others can learn from it, and appreciate the fact that we can show the board it's gone from what's written on a page as a strategic focus area to work that's actually happening and impacting students' lives and families on the ground. So thank you very much for being here for that.
Yeah, we can thank you, Commissioner, for your support and the board's support. And, this is something with funding, continuing to have funding to help offset, some of these costs is a big thing too. We pay each other some tuition dollars as well. It's minimal, but there is a cost with all of it. So continued support is really good.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The next presentation, moving back to the Hartford update on Hartford Public School System operations. I'm going to have the team to come to the table, and we'll also have Dr. Hughes can stay as well to talk about Bridgeport. So we have both of you again do your updates for us. And for the board, I know updates are in your supplemental packet as well.
Morning, everyone. It's great to be back. I'm Keith Morgan, Chief Planning Officer for the agency. I will be brief, but I have to be honest, it's been a busy month for our accountability. We support a lot of meetings, those who try to improve progress. I'm pleased to tell you that under the heading of improved special education and general ed supports on February 17th, the AST met with members of the superintendent executive cabinet who are responsible for academic and special education programming to test the district plan for strengthening core instruction and multi-tiered systems of support. And PSS is a key earlier. HPS is building upon the literacy model structures and data analysis protocols to develop a robust and coherent kindergarten to grade 12 literacy system. In addition, HPS continues to revise its MTSS guidance for its schools and support evidence-based peer intervention. That was the 17th of February. On February 20th, AST met with HPS special education leadership to review progress towards addressing special education staff vacancies to fulfill the special education compensatory fund that was owed. The district currently has 20.6 special education teacher vacancies. It reports that they've been attending over 40 external events and networking opportunities since July in order to expeditiously fill those vacancies. In addition, HPS has made some progress in addressing the compensatory education for students with disabilities by implementing a sophisticated tracking system. It's managed by the central office leadership to monitor school progress towards fulfilling compensatory time requirements. And finally, the district has reported 1,168 parent contacts related to compensatory time, and further that 52 students have completed all compensatory time owed for academics and related services as a result of actions under the auspices fiscal and grants management. Also on February 20th, Deputy Commissioner Hughes, Chief Turnaround Officer Melissa Jenkins, and CSDE staff met with PS Chief Fiscal Officer Stephen Richard and her leadership team in order to provide a status update on each program and strategize how to strengthen the program. It should be noted that HPS has addressed many from 6 recommendations specific to fiscal and grants management. However, they did request additional support in building the capacity of their staff to ensure grants are aligned with the needs of students. As a result, an outcome of the meeting is that CSD provide HPS with support to enable HPS to align funding to grant purposes and identified student learning needs. And finally, and very importantly, under the heading of staffing shortages on February 25th, our Chief Talent Officer, Shawana Tucker, met with HPS Human Resources Leadership. Pleased to report that HPS has developed a strong recruitment strategy and has been able to reduce the number of paraprofessional vacancies from 35 down to 25. In addition, the district will develop its staff retention strategy which includes a revision to new teacher orientation programs, along with implementation support for school leaders. And finally, HPS will also leverage BSDE support, implement 45 and 90-day state interviews to ensure that it is responsible to teaching needs of newly hired staff in order to help with retention. And that concludes my report on Hartford.
Thank you very much. I also want to recognize our superintendent of Hartford Public School is here, Dr. Townsell, and you'll see him later. So thank you. All right, Dr. Hughes.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. So switch topics to Bridgeport. So in your packet, you'll have the update for the last month, and I'll just a few key highlights. Not nearly as much work that's been going on in Hartford this month as with Bridgeport, but still some pretty significant focus areas on the fiscal side of the district. The commissioner, under her leadership, we met with the interim superintendent and his team, as well as our technical assistance team in Public Works, to identify those cost efficiencies. If you all recall, last time the board had just requested an increase year over year to their budget. And so we wanted to make sure that in light of a very short and a late start to their budget process, that we were continuing the work in district of looking at all efficiencies. So a lengthy set of items that we've been working through on a weekly basis. We've had 3, and actually I'll meet again later this week with the superintendent around his team's attempts to look at all of those cost efficiencies to find funding that still might be available. There are 4 big priorities that the district is zeroing in on. You'll see them 1, 2, 3, 4 in that first page. Payments to private providers of special ed services, costs associated with transporting students in district during the school day, reliance on contracted services for paraprofessionals, and then reliance on contracted services for filling daily certified and non-certified sub absences. These are big areas of increases year over year that we're assisting the district to be able to find cost efficiencies. Additionally, in the realm of human resources, we've been supporting the districts, particularly Public Works, around revising many of the HR policies that have been flagged in the 2025 forensic audit conducted by Clifton Larson Allen. So Public Works is really helping them develop those structures, and those policies would eventually go to the board for review. Within the regular and special ed instructional area, if you recall last month, I reported that we directed the technical assistance team to make a visit to the university school, a private provider of special education services. Subsequent to that, the district is now directing all site visits to occur. And in the last month, they've conducted 8 of these site visits using a uniform checklist that's been developed in partnership with our technical assistance team, Bureau of Special Education, and the district. So they are really taking a look at all the schools and the services that are being provided to students. They should be doing this annually anyway, but we are accelerating and drawing their attention to that effort. And the district has been taking that charge. The final piece, operational efficiency and effectiveness of the Bridgeport board. We are still expecting that the Bridgeport Board of Education, prior to posting for the superintendent vacancy, that they will have those bylaws passed and the administrative evaluation policies in place such that they can best represent any applicant that they have good, solid governance structures in place prior to conducting their search. And that concludes my update.
Can you just let us know, will Bridgeport be using a search firm or consultant? They're going to do it on their own.
That is a good question. We can update the board as we get more information relative to that question.
The reason I bring it up now, though,
yeah, sure.
True is that a search consultant would be able to help them in this process of getting as far as their bylaws.
Yes, absolutely. They have an existing search firm, and they are aware of, I know, other internal, local, state search firms that they could utilize as well.
They will be making a decision at some point. Yes.
And we have, Dr. Pitkoff, recommend one of our, technical assistance team members, will be a part of that process. So that will be my voice here, and direction, with the group as they're moving forward. Yes, very experience.
Is there a calendar in place for when the policies that need to be updated will be brought to the full board for a vote?
There was discussion, and I believe I saw a draft agenda to include the bylaws, but there was some disruption with snow as well in the last couple of weeks. So I do believe it is on their agenda to move forward, review of those bylaws. I don't know which agenda it is and if they have a calendar target date.
I was just curious, are there, in Stratford, our board meetings are at the end of the month, so will there be at the end of March, or have they already had their board meeting?
I would have to check on it. They usually have a board meeting early in the month.
That was my recollection. Okay, so this might be taken care of before our April meeting?
We will see.
Okay. Thank you.
And not to be, I'm saying not to be lost, and I know Dr. Hughes skipped over it, but potential savings for some of the work they've done already, nearly $1 million. So, you know, it's important. It's not just an exercise, but we're truly looking for an assistant that we're looking at efficiencies. I know there's advocacy for funding, but I'm also focused on what are you doing with what you've got? And we got to make sure that those resources are invested appropriately as well.
A separate question for Hartford. I noticed on the last page of your report, the reference to the fact that there's still compensatory hours in the thousands for students to be receiving. What is the timeline for getting those hours to those students in need?
That's a very good question. Just yesterday, I was having conversations with our liaison on the accountability and support team liaisons with the district. They are really developing, as is mentioned already and has been mentioned, a very complex tracking system that identifies the exact compensatory time at each location so that they can engage those conversations to accelerate the work. Now, is there a timeline on each? Really, this is as soon as possible, but we also recognize that there's an infrastructure that has to be built around that. And they have to maintain the teacher staffing levels that were a barrier prior to. And the district has done a great deal to encourage recruitment in special education. So maintenance of staffing will allow for the compensatory service hours to be delivered. The district has also done a lot of creative things to afford time to teachers to be able to meet the compensatory time obligations, such as professional learning time frames to be utilized to plan, coordinate, document, and make sure that they're addressing compensatory hours. Bring teachers up from duty periods to make sure that they can provide those services. So they are deploying everything at the now to be able to meet those demands. And hopefully they can be supported with maintaining the staffing levels to be able to meet that obligation over time.
Is this something that can be rolled into or be run parallel to extended school year?
Perhaps. I would have to get more information on that because I think that there are specifics around the extended school year that would apply. It depends on each individualized student's plan program that would dictate that piece.
Thank you. It's just alarming to know that there's students out there that are owed still thousands of hours of assistance for their learning.
Yes.
And that we are paying attention, and Brian Pinfowitz is going to be at the table. I don't know, Brian, you have anything else to add to that when we move on to that. But thank you very much. Again, keeping you informed of what's happening. And I also hear Ms. Record's question. I also like to have targets and deadlines so folks are working towards something versus, so that's my message back, that we need to pay close attention to timelines that we're working towards as well. Thank you very much. We'll move to our update on special education systems review. And Brian is coming to the table. And Catherine, why don't you join Brian as well? Just see what you're going to sit in front of this group. As our new bureau chief supporting special education work. And I want you to see, yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, everyone. As Catherine's making her way up, just Commissioner had mentioned, and just to respond to the question, as the Deputy Commissioner mentioned, for students that have extended school year services, the compensatory services can't conflict with those, but absolutely can be provided.
In addition to?
In addition to, as long as their schedules worked out with the family, and summertime is a really good opportunity. And so we work with the districts to ensure that there are systems in place to organize that across schools and locations.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. As you know, we've been coming to you now. This is our second month post our WestEd report on our systems, and we want to zero in just concisely today on complaints and our process around complaints. And so Brian put together some slides. We hear our communities, we hear from all of them, and as you know, this is something that we're doing, but I wanted him to focus on that this month with you. And so we have a few slides, Brian and Catherine.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. So the next slide should look familiar to you, as the Commissioner mentioned, our ongoing work related to the recommendations from the WestEd evaluation. And we're highlighting that section there around ensuring effective accountability and improvement. As you probably are aware, within our dispute resolution system, we have a continuum of options for families, and which include administrative special education complaint, mediation, due process hearings. Today, we're going to share a little bit about complaints. If you recall, in the WestEd report, there were through the focus groups and information we received from our interest holders, there were concerns around timeliness of complaints. So our next slide will show you our current data up to date, where we have received 189 administrative complaints. There are 33 active, where our investigators are actively involved with those. There have been issued complaints that are issued that resulted in corrective actions for our districts. That means there was a violation of either state or federal law in 57 out of the 79. And you can see the 22 that have been resolved without corrective action. Our next slide breaks down issues that we've received, and probably not to anyone's surprise, the top issue that we received are around implementation of individual education programs and failure to implement, as well as issues related to IEPs. This data is critical to our team as the information is brought back, and this helps inform our guidance and technical assistance to districts as we see needs arise throughout the year. The next slide will show data related to our timeliness. The timelines that we report to the Office of Special Education Programs on an annual basis require a 60-day turnaround from when the complaint is processed to the issuance of a report. And as you can see, this year we're at 95%. We did have 2 reports that resulted that were late as carryovers from the 24-25 school year. And this is a testament to the systems that are now in place as of August of this year. So this is really kudos to, and I'm glad that Catherine's up here as our bureau chief. Catherine's almost coming up on an annual anniversary here for us with the State Department of Ed. But one of her primary tasks was to support the dispute resolution system, specifically around complaint investigations. And our consultant, who is responsible for that system, Jen James, has been implementing the system with regularity, and we are now processing complaints to investigate in 1 to 2 business days, which, as you can see, has resulted in the improved outcomes for our timeliness. As well, since December of last year, we've formalized our process for sufficiency letters That's information that's sent both to the district and the parents when there are any issues related to the substance or the topics that are brought to us. As you can imagine, we receive complaints that are outside our scope at times, so we want to make sure the parents get that information and have the right avenue to resolve their conflict with the district if it's not through the Bureau of Special Education. We also have ongoing training for our complaint investigators and have tapped into our National Technical Assistance Centers for training and support. And I'd really like to give a shout out to our complaint investigators. Our next slide shows you the increase that we've seen over the last several years. This is a national phenomenon. So Catherine and I had an opportunity to meet with our state lead at the federal government yesterday in the Office of Special Ed Programs. And he said that this is happening across. He checked in with us on our complaint process, knowing that this has been a national issue. And what's not shown here on this date are the 26-27 data. And to date, we have received 30 more complaints than we did last year at this point in time, which reflects another 20% increase. So it's something to be aware of and pay attention to, as well as providing support to families and ensuring that they know how to access our department and our processes to resolve these disputes. But we're happy to answer any questions.
First of all, congratulations on the improvement on the timeliness. That's success. Now, the one question, Ryan, is July 1st to February 27th received the 189. How does that track to previous years?
Last year at this time, the end of February, we had from July to February, we received 159. So exactly at that 30 plus.
And it's being in a more timely manner.
Yes, we're very proud of that. Our investigators are working very hard.
So, thank you. And on the prior slide, you see we talked about, and we shared with this board, hiring an attorney that's going to be working out of the legal office, working with Attorney McKeon to further strengthen the system. And for those watching, we had a report, but we started to do the work and we're continuing to do that. So I'm not resting on great job, 95%. That really awesome work. But the deal is we want to make sure that we're 100%, but it's beyond that. It truly is, what is it that we're learning? Like, why are these complaints coming and what can we do? Because ultimately, it's about improving outcomes for our learners. And so there is a piece that's compliance-based, but it is not outside of what are the outcomes that we're working, how do we work with districts based on the complaints that we're getting, and how do we get into prevention? How do we prevent the complaints from happening? What is it that we need to do? That's a big part of the work as well. But thank you to the teams that started out at the top, and thank you, Brian. They stood up as well, because not only are they doing this, but they're also responding to the proposals and bill proposals. So all of that's happening at the same time. Gives you a sense of the complexity of the work that we're trying to move forward in the agency. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
And final report will be from the Alliance districts. We sent you that report maybe a few weeks or so ago, and he is just going to do some highlights of that report, and I think it's important that we know where it's happening. That's fine as well. There could be a state proposal around this.
Thank you, Commissioner. This report, the study was required in legislation. I've referenced there. We require us to report on the effectiveness of the Alliance District program and make recommendations for reforming the Alliance District program. Just to give a little background, the Alliance Districts is 36 districts as of now. It started off as 30 in 2012-13. That was the first year of the program. That included 33 after 5 years, and then included 36 after another 5 years. So that's essentially the program. To gather information, we reviewed lots of documents and data, but we also talked to several stakeholder groups. We conducted focus groups with superintendents. We also spoke with school business officials because they are the ones who handle the resources at the local level, and also with municipal leaders, because this really connects to the local municipal budget.
I just want to ground this in some key, what we call fiscal facts. And one of the things we learned doing this, and by the way, this is not something just performance did on its own. I have to acknowledge Jen Webb and Melissa Jenkins in the turnaround office, as well as Deputy Commissioner Hughes and Irene Parisi, who used to manage this work, along with Renee Savoy on my team, who sort of worked on this this over multiple years. And even when Kathy Dempsey was here, she was actually involved in this work too. So it couldn't have happened without all of them. The key part here to note is that the Alliance District program is not additional funds that the legislature is allocating. The Alliance District program is essentially a portion of the education cost sharing, or ECS, funding that all towns receive. So there's a difference between something called entitlement and grant in how the department handles it. Entitlements are really just paid out on a set schedule. There is no application. Districts don't apply for ECS funds. They just get, it's just paid on a set schedule. Grants, on the other hand, anytime you hear the word grant, it means that the recipient or prospective recipient has to apply and have to submit an application, tell us how they're going to use those funds, give us a budget, and that gets approved, and only then can they access the funds. But entitlement is very different from grant. So essentially what the Alliance District does is it takes a portion of the ECS funds, which are really entitlement, and it says, okay, now we're going to give this as a grant. And the moment you do that, the district now has to apply for those funds, when in the past they would have just gotten it directly. The other difference is that in the case of ECS, it goes directly to the municipality. Alliance District funding goes to the Board of Ed. Now, in the fiscal side of things, the Board of Ed is not a fiduciary. A town, the municipality is the fiduciary, but they end up creating a separate account in their accounting system where the Alliance District funds go. And the BOE now has more control over a portion of the ECS funds which they didn't have previously. Okay, so I think that's really important to know, that there's not additional money, it's a portion of ECS, but it gives the department more controls because it's now functioning like a grant. I can't cover all of this. I need like 2 hours. But I'm just going to go really quickly on the high level points. So what did we learn? We learned that giving a set aside to the Board of Ed directly, even though it's money they could have already gotten, is actually a good thing. We've had many successes, and there are many school districts that have improved. Several Alliance districts have exceeded pre-pandemic levels, et cetera. 14 out of 38 national blue ribbon schools that we have nominated actually came from Alliance districts. So successes can happen, and they do happen. We have lots of schools of distinctions and so on. The other piece is the way the statute is written is that the Alliance District funding is really an increase in ECS over a certain base year. And what happens is if a town got 10 million, and if the next year ECS is 12 million, that 2 million is essentially the Alliance District portion. And if that 12 million increases to 13 million, Alliance District becomes 3 million. The non-Alliance portion of 10 million goes to the municipality. So essentially what's happened over time from when it was started is that the Alliance portion has increased every year. The non-Alliance portion going to the municipality has stayed flat. So ECS today is about 2.45 billion. Okay. 14 years ago in 2012-13, the municipalities got 1.9 billion. Today, they still get around 1.9 billion because all the increases have been pretty much going to the Alliance districts, and all of those increases are going to the Alliance District grant. The Alliance District grant used to be 39 million when it first started in 12-13. Today, it's 536 million. Okay, so from 39 million to 536, essentially all the increase went there. Go to the next one. I mean, there's lots of pieces here to cover, but I can't do all of it, but you have those slides. Student students with high needs, they're more prevalent in alliance districts, that's true, but that disproportionality is reducing. More of them are now in districts across the state. And you heard this, more ELs, more students with disabilities, free reduced price meals. They're there, students from low-income families are in more and more districts across the state. Alliance districts still disproportionate, but not the way it was 13, 14 years ago. We also have multiple systems for district identification and support. Alliance district is one, but then we have something called a priority school district as well, which has a dedicated state funding, and that's a whole nother story. But essentially what happens is how we identify these districts, the rules vary, the grants vary, what we can use it for varies. Essentially, we're siloing money and creating multiple ways of supporting districts. And they have to apply for these funds over and over in different pots. And we're reviewing different grants, different processes, and so on. So there's redundancy and burden. Another sort of important point is that the Alliance District designation in statute, there are many, many references to Alliance districts, over 30 of them, not just in education, but in other areas. These may include things like loan forgiveness for educators who work in Alliance districts. So part of our recommendation is that, be very thoughtful about touching the statute, because you can't just change the Alliance district program. Know that it has lots of downstream ramifications here. And I mentioned how we went from 30 to 33 to 36. That was because the legislature modified the statute, which really didn't allow for a district that was improving to exit the program. So once Alliance, always Alliance is kind of what it is. So we essentially came up with a few recommendations, big picture recommendations. We said, reimagine the Alliance district. Let's call it something else. Let's move away from that old term. But let's have money going to the BOE directly. That's a good thing. That we found that that's actually worked. But maybe we can identify these districts in a different way that's more consistent based on both performance and need. That we limit our supports, not to 36 districts, but to a smaller subset of them. Intensive supports go to a small subset of these districts. Everyone else maybe gets desk monitoring. And that's okay. That could still work. And that we can utilize existing data systems to streamline the work of the district. That we could consolidate, we go to the next one. If we can consolidate the priority districts into the opportunity network, so that we have one system of district identification and support, not multiple systems, multiple pots of money, and so on. And this would take a lot of rework and a lot of thinking. It's not a quick sort of fix here. And also maybe allowing the SDE to retain a small portion of those non-ECS funds for providing oversight, technical assistance that we currently don't have. And then we could maybe do some incentives for improvement, things like that. Maybe having successful districts serving as mentors. I mean, you heard from Eastline and Waterford. They're not Alliance districts, but the idea of innovation is happening in Alliance districts. And they could learn from each other, and we could do much more there, having them serve as mentors for each other. And lastly, we've said, stage these recommendations. Don't give it some time. Let these things get discussed. And also encourage those networks to maybe use their funds for state-directed evidence-based programs. Because sometimes these positions, as the money has grown, we find that the Alliance program is basically paying for staff. Because when it's such a big part of ECS, they just have to cover staff. So we actually see kindergarten teachers, second grade teachers, et cetera, in the Alliance budget. It's no longer like an innovative kind of concept. It's just supporting core operations. So we felt like if there would be a way to incentivize a portion of that for evidence-based programs, that would be a good thing. So there's a lot more to this, but I've just given a little high level.
Thank you very much, Andy, for that. I wanted the board to, I guess we sent you a report, but wanted to have that information as well. We can continue. I don't know if there were any questions specifically on that one. All right. Oh,
I just have one question. Thanks, Jean. I appreciate the report as usual. I'll table my technical questions, but I do have one. So you mentioned that
total, if you think about total ECS funding as the sum of
Yeah.
if you think about total ECS funding as the sum of the regular ECS and the Alliance District, you mentioned that it's grown. Can you remind me the numbers you gave from 2012?
I'm thinking roughly like
Yeah,
one
sure.
point nine billion to about 2.45-ish billion.
Okay, and you kind of pointed out that that it comes entirely from the Alliance funds.
Well, essentially what you do is you calculate the ECS appropriation, and then you decide what the increase is, and that becomes the Alliance portion.
So I see, okay, so all the increase essentially it comes.
Yeah, and much of the ECS increase has gone to our highest need districts. So that's why the non-Alliance portion essentially is.
Yeah, I guess a theme that I guess has come up in public now, but we've not been talking about it here, is that when we, I assume you're talking here about nominal dollars, right?
Yes, I'm
Yes.
adjusted that.
Yeah, so we're thinking, I mean, in some ways, what this is doing is just kind of keeping things where they were, the districts that receive these funds mostly, given that each dollar buys less. Anyway, just my standard nominal versus real dollar crusade that I'm waging in these meetings. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's, those are.
Very good point.
Yes.
I know.
And I know there's lots of discussion happening this session, so we're gonna.
Yeah, no, I know that's on everybody's radar now, but I wanted to make sure that it stayed on our radar as well. That's me.
So we just, we were asked to do this report, and we worked very hard with legislators not to legislate changes before the report happened, where we can now have all of this information in the mix for them to consider. So thank you all. That was the report. Appreciate the staff for all the work that has happened here, and turning it back over. And the last thing I'll say, yesterday, the 3rd was my 5th year sitting in this role, and so appreciate the work, but also the outcomes. Thank you for that, based on the outcomes that we're receiving and the impact of the work that we're doing here. And so I just want to thank you all and thank the staff for the work that they continue to do. Back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your service. Yes.
Commissioner, in your report, you referenced the bell-to-bell cell phone ban that's in the governor's proposal. I'm not sure if it's a question or maybe a lower question, but I know that there's also HR 5149 that is a different cell phone bill. I'm wondering if you could just talk briefly about where the two bills are in relation to each other and what that reconciliation process is. Please.
So I'm not sure how they're going to reconcile it, but we did in our testimony share some concerns about that particular bill. For example, the governor is still, as I mentioned earlier, allow students with IEPs and healthcare plans to be able to have access if necessary. That's not in that bill. The other bill that you're referencing. The issue of districts having the opportunity to develop local policies around this, especially about emergency contacts, not in that other bill either. So what we've done is to share the differences in our testimony, but I'm not sure yet what the Education Committee will do as they vote out this bill going through, or will they use one versus the other or consolidate them? We watch that carefully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Governor. Now, we have, remember, we moved the consent agenda item number 10 to this place right now. So can I get a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Probably moved and seconded. All right. And does any board member want to remove any item? The consent agenda. Hearing none. Seeing none. Any questions, concerns? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It is so ordered. Moving on to item 8. Requiring action. Item A is the approval of Commissioner's Network Extension Year 5 for McDonough Middle School in Hartford. I get a motion.
So moved.
Second. I'll put move in second. Dr. Jenkins and
Good morning, Vice Chair, Chair, and members of the State Board of Education. The Commissioners Network is the state's most intensive school improvement strategy established to support schools facing persistent academic and operational challenges. Through the network, schools receive targeted resources, increased flexibility, and close partnership with the State Department of Education turnaround office to implement evidence-based transformative improvement strategies aimed at improving outcomes for students. Today, we are bringing forward a request for a fifth and final year in the Commissioners Network for McDonough Middle School. This request reflects both the progress of the schools and the importance of providing focused time to fully embed effective practices so that improvements are sustained beyond the network. I normally do not free flow and I normally follow a script, but I will like to say with McDonough Middle School and Hartford, that they've demonstrated tremendous progress, specifically around students receiving L and ML services. I also believe the leadership has been committed to making these practices transformative, and I hope that over the next year, we can visit the school to understand deeply what we can learn and what we can share with other schools in the Alliance landscape. At this time, Jennifer Webb, the Bureau Chief, will walk through specifically some of McDonough's successes in their use of the Commissioners Network funds to sustain their rationale for the request for an extension.
Good morning, almost afternoon, we're almost there, but it's my pleasure to introduce the leadership team of McDonough Middle School, including Superintendent Dr. Andre Townsell and Principal Marjorie Rice. Since entering the Commissioners Network in 2022, McDonough has made steady and meaningful progress in strengthening instruction, engagement, and school culture. For a bit of context, McDonough serves approximately 316 students in grades 6 through 8. 81% of the students are eligible for free or reduced price meals. 28% are identified as students with disabilities, and 41% are English learners or multilingual learners. When the school entered the network, the initial audit identified significant challenges. There was low academic performance, high chronic absenteeism, elevated suspension rates, inconsistent instructional rigor, and high teacher turnover. In response, McDonough has implemented a focused turnaround plan that's centered on strong, differentiated Tier 1 instruction, targeted professional learning, inclusive practices for special populations, and the intentional development of a positive, achievement-oriented culture. Today, we're seeing the impact of that work. I'm so proud of Marjorie and her team. I've worked with them now for about 6 years, and to watch the school, they have transformed. So academically, McDonough demonstrated growth across nearly all accountability indicators in this past year. English language arts performance increased by 4 percentage points, and math increased by 3.1 percentage points. Even more encouraging, though, is that their academic growth accelerated. ELA growth rose by 11.1 percentage points, and math growth increased by 4.3 percentage points. We also saw that meaningful progress for multilingual learners. 22 students exited services in 2025, and progress toward English proficiency and literacy increased by 16 points, which is strong evidence that their Tier 1 instruction and aligned language supports are becoming more effective. While chronic absenteeism still remains an area of focus, the trajectory is positive. Their rates declined by 10 percentage points, from 45.8 to 35.8%. This improvement reflects expanded home visits, strengthened mentoring systems, and a more strategic use of their Power Hour and the Virtual Academy to re-engage students. The McDonough Method instructional framework has now expanded across all tiers and is reinforced through professional learning that's focused on differentiation, integrated planning, and culturally responsive instruction. The Wednesday enrichment block provides structured time for data-driven collaboration and responsive professional learning. Importantly, though, There's greater staff stability over the past 2 years, which has strengthened consistency in both instruction and culture. They have clearer tier 1 expectations, reinforced behavioral systems that are aligned to PBIS, and they've expanded their mentoring structures to contribute to an improved climate, stronger relationships, and a more predictable classroom environment. As they enter into their 5th and final year of the Commissioners Network, their focus now shifts from implementation to sustainability. We want to ensure that these systems are fully embedded and they continue beyond our network support. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the Harvard Public School leadership to share more about their Year 5 plans.
Good morning, Chair, members of the State Board of Education, and Commissioner Russell Tucker. I'm Superintendent Dr. Andre Townsell, and our motto is simple but powerful. We set the bar, beat the bar, exceed the bar, and ultimately raise the bar. I'd like to share on behalf of McDonough Middle School and Hartford Public Schools, we want to express our deepest appreciation for the opportunity to participate in the Commissioners Network. Since entering the network in 2022, McDonough has demonstrated measurable progress in academic growth, English language proficiency, leadership effectiveness, and system coherence. We have eliminated all below standard indicators on the yearly audit and now have a majority of standards rated proficient. Most importantly, the gains reflect not isolated programs, but we've strengthened our systems. Our request for a 5-year extension is strategic. It's about raising the bar in the academic return on investment. In talent, we will continue to refine our team teach co-teaching model. We will deepen our coaching cycles for tier 1 instruction, and we will continue to get better with regards to academic achievement. In academics, we will deepen implementation of the McDonough method instructional framework with particular intention to increasing rigor, student discourse, and alignment of multi-tiered systems of supports to improve cycles. In climate and culture, we will formalize and scale our coordinated attendance and mentoring systems to further reduce chronic absenteeism and increase student connectedness. In operations, our priority is sustainability. We will embed data and assessment literacy across leadership and teacher teams to ensure that continuous improvement structures are developed. This extension represents a final phase of capacity transfer, moving from supported turnaround to durable, internally driven improvement. We are grateful for the partnership, the accountability, and the investment of the state that the state has made to our students. And a Year 5 extension will allow us to fully secure the gains achieved and position McDonough for long-term success beyond the network, ultimately continuing to raise the bar. So thank you for your consideration and your ongoing support.
First of all, congratulations. See that everything is moving in the right direction. We still got a long way to go, moving in the right direction. When we do these studies with improvement at middle school, I'm always thinking about a third, ideally, of your student disappear at the end of the year and go to the high school. So that numbers change partly with the students, but here is that you're changing the culture of the school, changing the activities that will go on in the future. So I noticed on all the massive statistics on improvements, you talk about the teacher turnover rate, finding that there are no statistics there. I was just wondering if you had any quantitative information you can share with us. How stable is the staff at this point? Because that's going to be critical.
Okay, so thank you for the question, and thank you also for having us. Being in the network has been amazing and transformative in terms of support. We actually, over the past 3 years, have not had teacher turnover aside from just last year, which was one classroom teacher. We've been retaining our staff, holding on to our staff. We are nearly fully enrolled and we are fully staffed, and we are holding on to our team. And they are the most committed group of individuals, and they are committed to doing work for just the best children. Please come to the end.
But just for reference, it's a very small staff. It's about 15 staff members. So when one person leaves, it is a huge impact. So there's been a lot of work done to really stabilize those structures.
When 5 people leave, it's a bigger impact. So
And that's true, it's like 10.
in any school system, there's going to be turnover of school. Because people have lives and also, I love the answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just one comment from me, because I was a part of that team that came in to visit, and I was equally impressed with what I saw in the school, and education is taking place. Evident and easy. Okay, you've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Move. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Item B, approval of the emergency educator certification endorsements for the 2026-27 school year. Tucker and team.
Good afternoon.
I'm sorry.
So moved. Second.
Second, please proceed.
Afternoon, Interim Chair Harris and board members. The Talent Office, we come to you again, our 5th year, to present to you the approval of emergency educator certification endorsements. I will now turn it over to Dr. Kaylin Linchardi, our unit coordinator for the Certification Bureau.
Good afternoon, State Board of Education members. Talent Office is seeking approval to extend the emergency temporary authorizations for the 26-27 school year. These emergency authorizations have been critical in supporting public school districts with filling open positions, especially those 0.2 and 0.4 part-time positions that would normally go unfilled. Since first adopting these emergency temporary authorizations in 2021, 961 emergency endorsements have been issued to 740 educators. Our public school districts continue to regularly express their gratitude for the flexibilities these authorizations provide. And since first adopting them, several districts start contacting the Talent Office in January to see if they will be continued for another year. If approved, these authorizations will only be issued to those educators who are appropriately certified, who have completed the beginning educator induction program, and who agree to engage in this assignment. Happy to answer any questions you may have, and thank you for your time and consideration today.
Uh, 961 emergency, 740. This reflect multiple years.
Yes, this is since 2021. Correct.
No, I meant the it was 740 teachers receiving 961 endorsements. Are some of the teachers getting multiple?
Correct. If they're able to. So some of those teachers might be elementary certified as well as holding a secondary teaching certification. So if the district needs them in different places, they are allowed to have that flexibility to do that. Correct.
Another, the 538 teacher vacancies statewide or exclusive of special ed. How many of these vacancies were filled, those emergencies?
You know, that is a really great question. We actually don't have it set up in the EDS. How many open positions have been filled with that? I mean, that's definitely a number that I can get for you.
Yes, that would be a gauge for me about how effective these.
And I think it would be great for me to connect with a G2 to help answer that question, because sometimes our districts are just filling these positions and they're not necessarily updating the EES. So if that's the case, then that makes it challenging for us to manage. But I could definitely get that for you, sir.
Great question. I'll answer that question partly for you, as I am someone who is currently serving under an emergency certificate. So I just want to highlight that this is of huge value to districts, not only because of the point twos and point fours that sometimes need to be filled. My school right now has 3 vacancies for science teachers, and they've been unfilled. And so this semester, I'm now teaching chemistry, though I'm certified to teach physics. My schedule has changed with my agreement. And so I am someone who's teaching under this cert, and I am the next best person who should be in front of kids to teach them chemistry. After they've had months and months of just a substitute teacher who's not certified. So this is a continuation of a huge benefit to districts for the vacancies that we just spoke about. In my district, what they did was they divided up the courses that are left by the vacancies, redistributed them to the remaining science teachers, and I volunteered to pick up 3 sections of chemistry. So thank you for bringing the proposal forward. I'd also like to echo what was said in public testimony this morning. This is just a Band-Aid. There is a huge problem on our hands when I know my district isn't the only district that has 3 science vacancies. Science, STEM fields, CTE fields. We need people in the pipeline in those EPPs. And this can't be the solution to that problem. But thank you for bringing it forth so that we could continue to help districts with this.
And speak to that too. I completely agree and commit. If you don't mind, I'd like to speak to that. This may be something that, working with the Ed Prep and Certification Board, we want to consider putting in an adjusted regulation with a goal of a pathway to certification. So that way it's the teacher, because we have had teachers that have been issued these emergency authorizations that later sought out the cross endorsement and now are duly certified in certain areas. So it may be an encouragement, help our districts place these, but then a motivator for our teachers to expand their teaching licenses. So I couldn't agree more, but with the right safeguards in place, it may be something that we may be able to adopt.
Thank you. That was my essential question is 6 years of renewal. Is there any kind of structural solution?
It would have to come through regulation. As you know, the Ed Prep and Cert Board is currently engaging in rewriting a large sections of the regs. So once maybe they get to those, sunsetting deadline regs, it could be something that we could consider adding language for.
Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of this approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So ordered. Thank you. Item C, adoption of CEPCB's 2026 proposal regarding sunsetting regulations. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Probably moved in second.
Perfect timing, right? We're just talking about that. Good afternoon, officially, everyone. Thank you. So as stated before, I probably have about 21 pages of regulations. Most of them are sunsetting regulations that we have amended to align with current law, as well as adjusting language for modernization. These have gone through an ad hoc committee, our board, as well as LPDC, and now before you. And through that process, we also had a lawyer from the Potomac Group in DC to assist with this work, as well as SDE and CEPO. So before you, you have what is the equivalent of 3 batches, 6, 7, and 8, because we keep count. How would you like to proceed? Would you want to go through each one, or is the I think the last time was we were going to accept them and be moved on to the legislation.
I think everyone's read it. Move in and then the vote.
I'm sorry.
I said they said keep moving. and then they'll do the vote.
Okay. Okay. So you don't want to vote on the dispatch first and then go into legislation?
Two separate documents.
There's three different lines.
So you can vote on this.
Can we vote on this document? Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. You can take the vote on this.
I appreciate all those lighthearted smiles around the table.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're, get a motion.
Ready now.
For item D.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, this is for the initial certification via alternative routes. There was just some added language. You can see there that it would include anything teaching under resident or teaching residency service under a temporary 90 certificate and other requirements of the program to allow some flexibility and experience to option. There's a question.
Any questions? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Item E. Reissuance of the initial certification with time served.
So moved.
Second.
Great, thank you. So because we removed provisional from the certification process with a 10-year span, and what we wanted to do was ensure that anybody who goes into education, should they serve 2 years, maybe 3 years or more, and then they have, for some reason, left the profession and then decided to come back, those years will be considered as part of their time served and deducted from their 10 years to get to professional. Only have to do the remainder as opposed to starting the clock over again. That's what that is at the end there, is to provide them with that flexibility so they're not restarting should they have unexpected circumstances. They may leave the profession and not return before getting their professional service.
Questions? Served from the on card. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you so much for allowing the flexibility and having us come forward. I'm hoping that, we're almost very close to the end. We're in the ed prep program approval process for the regulations. And hopefully when those are done, we are done with the regulations for the time being. We'll have a leaner, neater, modernized version of our regulations. Stuff. Thank you.
Do you have anything on the financial? Okay. Item 11. 24, 25, student discipline in Connecticut. Okay. You have the floor, sir.
And I'm looking for a sheet who is in another room talking with some legislators and answer some questions for them.
Good afternoon. So I can talk to you about what we call actions to turn the curve. The sheet is much better at describing the rates and tiers and going up into those tiers, but be like that. So when we have the sheet talk about the data for lay the groundwork and then. Sorry.
Yeah, more than one place.
So this is our annual discipline report that we have submitted, so I'm not going to belabor. You have the full report, you have the executive summary, which highlight the essential trends. Suspensions, the total number of suspensions has decreased and is now similar to pre-pandemic levels. In-school suspensions have decreased and expulsions have decreased. Out-of-school suspensions are slightly higher than pre-pandemic levels. Some incident categories are lower in 24-25 than in the pre-pandemic baseline year 18-19. Particularly, we're pleased to see like school policy violations, which are like the discretionary, more discretionary category that's declined almost 10% in some other areas, but some categories are showing increases like property damage, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, that seem to have increased. Physical, verbal confrontation, and weapons category that also increased. Incidents reported for marijuana possession or use has increased nearly 4.5 times from 21-22 when we had 261 incidents to over 1,100 incidents. But those for the electronic nicotine delivery systems, ENDS, or vaping, vapes, and e-cigarettes far exceed those coded as marijuana, like almost 2,800 of those incidents. So in terms of disproportionality, we still have disproportionality between the racial ethnic groups. So disparities remain. Black and African American students getting significantly greater suspension at greater rates than white students. So for example, 1 out of 24 white students may get at least 1 suspension, but 1 out of 8 African American, Black African American students get a suspension, and 1 out of 11 Hispanic Latino students get suspension. So I mean, those disproportionalities have reduced, but they still exist. And this is a pattern that's not just in some districts, it's prevalent in more districts than not. And males receive suspensions at a significantly greater rate than female students as well. Perhaps the most striking change after the pandemic was the middle school grades, the increase in those middle school grades. There is improvement in those grades, so that's a little heartening to see, but still elevated in those middle school grades that we still continue to see. We're still seeing suspensions among our pre-K-2 students. The number of in-school suspensions and out-of-school suspensions combined is lower than in 2018-19, about 17% lower. So that's good. But those incidences are still occurring, and those are by statute limited to those that are violent or sexual in nature that endangers other persons. So that statute is still in place, but we still continue to see some of those suspensions. I think I'll essentially turn it over to John to discuss. The report does get into like all the things we're doing around this. If I could just mention one thing on school-based arrest, that is something we're required to report in this report, and that is included in the report, but we're in conversations with our partners at the Court Support Services Division, CSSD, because they actually maintain what I would consider more of the authoritative source on school-based arrest data. Our data come from what districts report to us. So we're in conversations with them to potentially share that as the school-based arrest data with you going forward instead of the district reported, because the numbers aren't essentially comparable. So we feel like their numbers are much more accurate because they're actual arrest data.
And part of the reason for that is if districts or schools call 911 and the police come, or someone responds, sometimes it's 211 through mobile crisis. The school isn't always aware of what happens, what transpires with that student once they leave, right? Sometimes they are arrested, sometimes they're not. So the accuracy of the judicial branch data, they track those arrests. So we know. The other thing we're trying to find out from them that they don't collect, that we're asking them to start to collect, is at what times are those youth arrests happening, right? So we're trying to understand, are these arrests happening as a result of something that occurred in school and they were arrested as a result of that behavior in school? Or is it something that happened off school hours, weekends, nighttime, and the police responded to the school the next day and made that arrest because of something that happened? I think that's an important distinction, whether schools are essentially calling 911 for that, or that's just a place where the police know that the students are. So in terms of what are we doing? Commissioner I said, well, what are we doing about that? I think some of the behaviors, classrooms are still seeing some of the effects of the pandemic, right? When we had students who missed a lot of that socialization time when they were in elementary school, are now in middle school, and really not fully grasping and understanding of what it means to behave appropriately in a community, right? So that part of that is what's happening. We are convening 2 communities of practice one for disproportionality. As you mentioned, the numbers still show disproportionality for Black and brown students. We're convening 29 districts. Those are the ones in tier 3 and tier 4, both disproportionality and excessive use of exclusionary discipline. We're going to talk about best practices. We're going to look at their policies. We're going to assess how they're implementing their policies. We're going to look at their philosophies around exclusionary discipline versus restorative practices, and have some real conversations to bring those numbers down. Last meeting, I believe, we talked about a couple of different grant programs that we're rolling out. The Rural Health Transformation Grant will be working in about 40 different rural health communities on behavioral health, supporting the implementation of behavioral systems for those districts. The governor's budget also includes $5 million to expand our behavioral health pilot, which is very successful in 7 districts in not just reducing things like suicidality and suicide attempts, but really reducing the need for exclusionary discipline, out of school suspension and expulsion. In some cases, reduce those numbers by half in a couple of our districts. A lot of work is happening in school climate. Dr. Hughes reports the work on the state board's goals. We are doing a number of things. We're working with the American Institutes of Research. They're going to help us strategize on how we need to roll out a framework for districts to follow in terms of improving school climate. We're working with Ed Advance in our Chef region schools to support school climate there. And we have an internal school climate collaboration and innovation team that's also across the agency, making sure that all the offices are thinking from academics to performance, student supports, that we're all working collectively in addressing that work.
There's one other thing. On the, these data are from the end of the year report. So all the discipline data comes in by the end of the school year. So sometime in August, September, we get it up on its site in October. One of the things we're working on this year is we've asked all districts to submit their data 3 times a year. So they're actually giving their data in November-ish timeframe, sort of the first 2-3 months, then again in March, and then the end of the year. And we're going to actually provide that data to CSDE staff who work with districts. So the Alliance District folks, when they meet our turnaround office colleagues, when they meet with those individual districts, they will actually have current year discipline data, sort of like what we do with monthly attendance, but now we're extending that to discipline, not doing it monthly, but doing it on a quarterly or 3 times a year basis, so that there can be some discussion during the year and see like how are suspensions trending during the year, so that there can be some more action taken. So that's something that we're starting this year. That report will be Insight secure for the SDE staff to use. It's uncertified data, so it's kind of preliminary, but we're making like a working copy available so that they can support more.
Charlie, do you want to offer something?
If I may, through the chair, just want to also thank you both, first of all, but also lift up some working partnership to revitalize our state's MTSS framework with our partners at CERC that will address, or at least we plan to address, the intersection with the behavioral supports and intervention, which should have an additional impact on disciplinary proceedings. If students receive the supports early, as John was talking about the mental health supports, we can mitigate that so it doesn't lead to a disciplinary action, particularly one that might be as severe. So these are all different integrated pieces that can support our districts. So I'm mentioning that.
Thank you. Yeah, and speaking, there's a lot of that work that's happening in special education. Part of what we're required to do under the Individual Disabilities Education Act is to address both the overuse of exclusionary discipline, suspension, and expulsion in special education students, and particularly those the use of that in special education with students of color. So we look at both of those and we have an immediate reaction when there are discrepancies, and we require a corrective action on the part of the district. So that's something that we do in conjunction with the special education firm. And then a couple of other things. We're doing essentially a monthly webinar series with school social workers. We get in at least 300 social workers who participate in those. And one of the ones we will be doing in the future is called Beyond Behavior: Strategies for Supporting Emotional Regulation in School. And that's going to be largely driven by our friend Dr. Ketter, who is a behavioral developmental pediatrician at Connecticut Children's. So really wonderful thing. So, and then lastly, I'll just mention that we're ramping up our efforts to support alternative education programs. Often students are expelled end up in alternative education programs, and we are going to be doing site visits and some work with those to assess the students' experiences in those situations to make sure that they're in compliance with the law and that students are receiving it. And I will pause it.
Chris.
Thank you for this data. Very interesting. As a high school principal myself, I see that ninth grade has very high suspension rates. And also when they transition from middle school to high school, have you thought about talking to schools about how to transition? I know as a high school principal, I used to have ninth grade, and I used to have groups and where I would talk about school, what we expect, the climate, and to parents, and to and this went on all year because every time ninth grade were having difficulty transitioning and being kind of independent at the high school because they have to move around themselves, get themselves together. There's no one holding their hands really. So I was just wondering if there's anything there for them, for districts to help them with that transition. Because it was not easy.
Yeah, I think it's one point, and it's something that we can take up in the community practice with those districts. Because to your point, those students are coming from the top of the middle school in eighth grade, right? And then now at the bottom, and understanding what it means to be high school. And again, that the COVID really impacted that growth and development, that maturity to the younger grades. So we are seeing that. But yes, thank you for that. We will definitely have that.
I have two not related to each other questions. First, the lens using here is the legislation about school climate committees. The 3 times a year data reporting that you just referred to, are those data that should be seen and discussed by the school climate committees as they do their work during the year?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. And then
obviously not individual student data on this, right? But
the aggregate data, it popped into my head as you said that there's a focus for the department staff talking specifically with alliance districts, but just want to make sure that on a statewide basis that those data should be made available to school climate. And then my second question is about as a high school teacher, the obvious increase in student prevalence of vaping marijuana. So I'm curious to know when that is recorded as an incident, does it doubly count under the marijuana category and the ENDS category, or does it go one place or the other?
They're mutually exclusive. So it would go in one or the other.
So if I vape marijuana, where is it going to go? What
It
category does
depends
it get
on what the
reported?
district, how the district reports it.
So the district has discretion.
Yeah, they pick basically, is it a marijuana or ENDS?
Is there an incentive for it to be one or the other? Is one considered more serious than the other? Right?
Well, I mean, it's a marijuana possession as a criminal offense, right? For being under the age of 21.
So you're just assuming that it was reported as marijuana?
If I could just jump in a little bit. So first of all, we would have to lean into a district's policy. Policy. The second is districts report on the disciplinary, whatever they call it in district, they're,
Code of conduct,
well, yes, but when they document. That
in the coding, that's
an official document, and that document usually translates directly into a data system that we collect and cheats us in the process. So they should have, they are required definitely to document that. On those referral sheets, if you do it. Whatever the incident occurs, right? So they're signing off that this is what occurred with this student. This was the infraction. So other incentives, I can't speak to that, but I would say that the discipline policy should be guiding the district's individual administrators' action in reporting.
It's just curious to me that the data clearly show that the ends usage far exceeds the incidents that are coded as marijuana use, but I know students aren't vaping tobacco, they're vaping marijuana.
So just to clarify, is that the ends category, even though, you know, vapes are an example, the ends stands for nicotine delivery system. So
it's only vaping.
Only for nicotine dispensation. So if it's marijuana, then it would show up as marijuana criteria.
That's the answer that I was looking for. Thank you very much.
I had one of my folks who was watching because I'm getting live updates. Thank you, correct.
Live updates are fantastic. Thank you.
The comments.
So I'm looking at this with my pediatric clients and, you know, other than the racial disparity issue, the middle school one, a little alarming, not surprising. The middle school is that emotional reactivity here. All these hormonal changes. It's not easy as to Dr. Levin's suggestion that transition, I look at ninth grade as essentially it. You talked about behavioral health supports in general. Has there been any programs targeting specific supports for middle school?
Specific to middle school, I'm going to ask actually Kim Terroso. I'm going to come up. Kim leads the school discipline work.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
So the question was about specific behavioral supports.
Yes. So we are looking at more targeted supports. So for example, if a district is really seeing the data after they disaggregate the data, that middle school is the issue, then that's where we will focus. If it's ninth grade, that's where we'll focus. So we really are trying to be more intentional about our services, what we're providing based on need.
And I guess what I was suggesting is if you're seeing it in high school, the origins are probably from seeing. So for more of a preventative strategy, are we going to target with younger ages, you suggest the critical times that were affected by the pandemic, but also I have yet to meet anybody who wasn't somehow affected by their experience. So, you know, putting our efforts towards that seems to be where you're going to.
I can't agree with you more. And we've been having those conversations for sure. And we definitely want to do more of a promotional preventative model rather than waiting until something is in crisis mode. So we are making those adjustments. And I did hear that our deputy commissioner was talking about us updating SRBI and MTSS. And that's part of that process for sure.
Erin?
Yes, thank you. Thank you both for bringing this report to us. I just want to draw attention to the last paragraph in the summary to board members, just to remind that the Connecticut does have school discipline collaborative that meets a few times a year, and I'm part of that. Any board member that would like to get further into the weeds with this discussion, you know, just let me know. But I'm not sure, John, if you know when the next meeting is. I know they had one or can?
March
I don't-
25th.
Okay, so if you could, I know I get the notices of them and I'll make sure that board members do, because it gives you a very interesting perspective about what is going on in different districts and getting into the weeds of this. So thank you all for bringing this forward.
Any other comments? Charlie?
So again, thank you for bringing in the report again. We started doing this report to the board 2012 or 2013 was what I was going to say, because it is important that we're taking action. And I also want to thank you and also to our districts, because they'll be reporting information more frequently to us so that we can have actionable data. If you follow what we've done with attendance, with getting that information in monthly, that it allows us to be really proactive instead of just being reactive. And so using this data, which climate committees and all those will help folks to figure out how to do that. But we see results when we lean in on making data informed decision and supporting our districts as well. So I appreciate that move that is occurring. And just to say, best attendance in January, since we've been collecting data, you should know that trend is continuing and supporting that. So using that model, having data that we can work with our districts and support them on, having our internal teams working together towards the same goal, I think is what's going to give us the results that we're looking for. So I thank the team for continuing to do that and for your interest and engagement with this work as well. Thank you very much.
That concludes our agenda. Take a motion.
So moved.
Second. We are.
It's always like, nothing's good.
I know, it's a popular one. So
That's right. Bring it to
Funny or weird. Okay, so today,